Today's presentation is going to be caregivers for impaired adults and their health concerns. Throughout this presentation, we're going to be focused on the caregiver. And when we're talking about impaired adults, we're talking about anybody 18 or older. So caregivers are those who provide, to some degree, care and assistance to people who cannot do, activities of daily living by themselves, and they require ongoing assistance throughout their life. And this could either take place in an unpaid at-home kind of situation or within an institution. I was unable to find locally what the population was, but statewide, 20% of adults in Utah are currently caregivers or have been caregivers. And this kind of comes out to about 1 in every 5 people have, taken part in caregiving. And I can only imagine what that would be like locally in my community. There are approximately 39.8 million caregivers who provide care to adults 18 and older with some kind of disability or illness within the nation. And then worldwide, I wasn't unable to really find a specific number for the amount of caregivers, but there are reported 349 million people that are care dependent. So we can only imagine how many people are actually caregivers and people who may not be recorded in this statistic. So caregivers, they are everywhere, bless their souls. So the social determinants of health, I would classify this under a social and community context. Relationships can greatly impact a person's health and safety throughout their life, and this greatly includes caregivers. Because the role of caregiving can be so demanding, it often can impact the relationship with the person they're caring for, the relationship with themselves, and the relationship found within their communities. Some concerns that we have for caregivers that we see are elevated levels of depression and anxiety. And because of those elevated levels of depression, of anxiety and depression, they're more prone to take more psychoactive medications. Many caregivers have reported that their physical health has declined significantly since starting caregiving. This can be due to those elevated amounts of stress, which lead to anxiety, which lead to fatigue and lack of self-care. A lot of them, because these things mount, have a compromised immune function, and can have increased and chronic health conditions in the future. They're at a greater risk for early death. A lot of caregivers also experience financial hardship, and that accounts for about 27% of caregivers kind of find themselves in these financially sticky situations when caring for a loved one due to all of the extra costs that are being put into caring. There's also an increased risk for alcoholism, substance abuse, and psychotropics. So the root cause of this, these health issues that can pop up with caregiving, is they are less likely to engage in self-care and preventative health behaviors, thus making them a vulnerable population that we need to watch out for. In looking at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, caregiving impacts a whole range of needs within the framework of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So kind of with every section, there are deficits, there are needs that are unmet. Caregivers are often claim to be tired. They have financial struggles, which affects their security needs. They find themselves lonely and isolated, and can feel distanced from the loved one they're caring for. And that falls into the category of love and belonging. They can care about the opinions of others, which greatly affects one's self-esteem. And in the attempt of trying to honor loved one's wishes, the need of self-actualization is unmet. Just because we're dealing with the whole hierarchy of needs, caregivers are more prone to burnout, and can lead to further health disparities. In a study, it was found that a lot of caregivers have enhanced fulfillment, that even though these things are hard and some of their needs aren't met, they feel like it is rewarding in some way. And then just as a community or healthcare professionals, supporting caregivers by enabling them to continue to fulfill their needs as they continue to care in their role of caregiving, enables them to kind of help these needs be met and decrease the likelihood of caregiver burnout and further health issues. With communicable diseases, because stress and fatigue and lack of self-care, their caregivers can be more prone to communicable diseases such as the cold and flu and respiratory infections. And not only are they more prone to get those, they're more apt to give those to the people that they care for. And so a way to remedy this is just practice good hand hygiene, wear gloves and masks to help prevent the spread of infection. Non-communicable diseases or infections. Long-term caregiving leads to depression and anxiety and a weak immune system, and can lead to several other chronic diseases, when that prolonged stress is stretched out over a long period of time, and this can lead to heart disease and diabetes and blood pressure and arthritis. And one way to remedy this is to alter their lifestyle and kind of opt for a more healthy one. And this includes, a healthy diet and allowing themselves more time. And we will talk more about specifics here later in a future slide. And so another concern that we have is self-care deficits. About 53% of caregivers have indicated that they have a decline in their health, and that greatly affects the care that they are able to provide to their loved one. And like we talked about before, it leads to more depression and anxiety, and they don't get enough sleep or physical activity, which in the end increases their risk for medical problems. And we're going to talk about those solutions in our next slide. Another concern is a risk for harm by or to others. And so there are two kind of categories of harm that we're dealing with here. And one is caregiver to patient. Caregiving is stressful, and caregivers are more prone to burnout, which makes them more susceptible to impatience and neglect and lashing out at the people they are caring for. And then on the right, we have these caregivers who can have harm from patients. And I know that this isn't talked about very much, but the caregiver, no matter their age, the person that's being cared for, no matter their age, can react poorly to their increased independence or not being able to understand or remember things, and can cause a lot of resentment and frustration and cause them to lash out to their caregiver, be it verbally or physically. And so some possible solutions, for when a caregiver is abusing a patient, when that becomes a risk, is one, accept help. Look at possible options within your family or within your community to see what you can do to help you so you don't have those moments of impatience and lashing out, and focusing on what you're actually able to provide and not pushing yourself to the limit all the time. Joining support groups is a wonderful resource. Seeking social support, setting personal health goals, seeing your doctor, letting them know that you're a caregiver so they can watch for signs within you of caregiver burnout. And even respite care is a wonderful resource. If a patient is abusing a caregiver, it's okay to, distance yourself from the abuse. Or if it's a distant family member, if they're being targeted, it's okay to limit or eliminate interactions. Hire in-home care services. A lot of times patients will be more patient and accepting of people that they don't know rather than a family member, and that abuse won't occur often. And then consider changing living arrangements, putting them in a home so they have professionals who have dealt with behaviors that know how to manage and handle them. And that's my presentation.